Hey, I'm Kristen. I'm a rural squirrel. Thanks for clicking on my video. I appreciate you so much. Last year, we went to about 17 different bins locations in our little camper, a little travel trailer. On those travels, we went to several different bins locations. Most of the bins that we went to were in the Midwest or the West, with the exception of a couple in Florida. This year, we're expected to go to a couple in Arkansas and Omaha and Vegas, and hopefully a few in Texas and the one in Indianapolis that we missed. Of course, we're gonna hit our regulars here in Colorado too. So if you like the idea of traveling and thrifting and finding out where we go next, because you never know where we're gonna be, just make sure that you subscribe and click that bell to get notifications so that you can find out where we are on our traveling adventures. And if you would give this video a like, I would be super grateful. So I am a long-time reseller, long-time thrifter, been doing it for, I don't know, 100 years. And my favorite place to go is the bins. I like to go to the retail stores too, but it's so hard to beat the excitement of whenever you go to the bins and you find something buried in all the garbage that is really cool or really neat or really unique or really valuable. And since it's the last stop before it goes to the landfill, I'm grateful that I get a chance to pluck it out of there and find it a new home and give it some more new life. So what exactly are the bins? The bins are, some places call them a warehouse, some places call them a bargain barn, some places call them a clearance center. I mean, they have lots of different names in different regions, but everybody that I know calls them the bins. It's a pretty generic term that covers all of those kinds of outlets and discount centers. So at the bins, Goodwill clearances their things that were on the floor and didn't sell, or it is overstock donations that they haven't had a chance to even process yet. So that's why sometimes there's some really crazy great things that never even saw the floor of a regular Goodwill. So when you check out or whenever you purchase things at the bins, you're paying for it by the pound. And I'll tell you how much each of these different locations charged me at the end, so stay tuned. So all of the bins that we went to, the premises is all pretty much the same. They have these totes, or I call them a trough, but it's a bin that rolls out and it's these big blue buckets. And whenever they come out, it's not on a nice little hanger like they are at the regular retail stores. It is in a bucket that you have to dig through. And that's typical in every location that I saw this year. So here's a look at a lot of the typical bins locations. Some bins were crammed really close together. Some you could walk all the way around each bin. Those were really nice, especially like Sarasota and Phoenix. Most of the time when a bin comes out, it's just tossed in there. There's no rhyme or reason to it. A few locations put like a tote or a box inside of the bin to make it easier to sort. Most of the time it was in the glassware section, which makes a lot of sense. It made things easier to sort through without breaking a whole bunch of stuff, but not every place that I went to sorted out their glassware. Denver doesn't sort out their glassware. Fort Myers and Jacksonville, Illinois do. A few places had big square totes, or sometimes they were plastic, sometimes they were cardboard. They called those things gaylords. And they sat on the floor and you had to almost stand on your head to try to dig through some of those things. Not every location had those. I just recently saw them for the first time in Denver, and they had books in them. Whenever I have been to Phoenix, there's all kinds of wares, or even clothes, or shoes, or books. You never know what you're gonna find in them, but not every location that I saw had gaylords in them. Most of the time it was just rolling bins. Now, some of the things I'm gonna show you may or may not have changed since the last time that we visited. Even my local home bins has policy changes or procedural changes that happen pretty frequently. Plus, we were traveling during COVID for some of these, so some of the places were a little more COVID-y than others. For instance, during COVID, places used to restrict the number of people that came in. I'm sure that's probably changed. In Phoenix, they made you pre-register before you came in. And in some places, they only allowed one person in a bin at a time, which was actually kind of nice. Although one person in the bin, for instance, in Colorado Springs, isn't a thing anymore, I do think they still pre-register people in Phoenix. In the comments, let me know if I'm wrong. During COVID, especially at the beginning of COVID, Denver required that you wear gloves in order to come in, and that isn't the case anymore. However, in Fort Myers, you had to wear gloves to go through the glassware. Maybe that's the same, maybe it's different. I don't know, leave me a note in the comments. I'm curious. Even before COVID, a few places had some quirky little rules or procedural requests, policies that were in place that were a little bit different than some of the other places. An example is Jacksonville, Illinois. When you go to Jacksonville, you have to wear closed-toed shoes. No open-toed shoes allowed. No flip-flops, no sandals, no peep toes, nothing. Now, when you get there, if you aren't prepared and you didn't know that, they'll let you go over to the shoe bin and find a pair of closed-toed shoes that fit you, and then you can wear them while you're there after you buy them. I met a lady that had to do the same thing whenever we were in Jacksonville. We both thought it was kind of quirky and weird, but it works for them. I'm sure that there are other quirky little things that other bins locations do too, and if you want to drop me a comment and let me know what those are, that would be fun to see. So carts seem to be a hot commodity in almost every location. They were more coveted than even a new shoe rotation. People fought over them just to get them, or they'd follow you out to your car so that they could have one. Sometimes you'd go places and they didn't have very many cards at all. Sometimes they'd have an abundance of cards, but you better snatch one before it's gone because some people would take 2 or 3 different carts so that they can sort or buy lots and lots of stuff. Some places didn't even allow carts down the aisle, especially in new rotations. We found that to be the case in Omaha, where I didn't get any videos, as well as Kansas City, Denver, and I think that might be all, or at least that I noticed. Several places had designated specified locations where you needed to park your cart while they were rotating a new rotation and bringing out new bins. Indianapolis had things specifically marked off where this is where you go while the new rotation is being processed. Phoenix also had a pretty designated area where this is where you lined up to make sure that they could process and get the rotation through and not get in anybody's way. There were other places like Denver, Fort Myers, Colorado Springs, Reno, Salt Lake City, where it seemed like there was sort of an unwritten rule of where your carts went whenever you were sorting or going through the bins and digging and seeing if you could find something good. So you would find all the cool things that you liked and that you wanted, or that at least you wanted to consider, and you would go and take them to your cart wherever that was parked. That's pretty much the norm, or it seemed like that has been pretty much the norm. Sometimes places that you went to, a lot of people would put a blanket or something over the top of it so that you didn't dig into somebody else's cart. But I think that's probably also an unwritten rule where if it's not yours, don't touch it. All of the different locations, whenever they were processing or bringing in a new rotation, had you either stay out of the way in some form or fashion. Some places cleared the whole row, some places cleared a whole section, a few places cleared the entire floor. What was also the same about each of these different locations is that whenever the rotation did come out and you got to go get in front of whichever bin that you wanted to start digging in, you had to wait for the Goodwill employees or the manager to say, okay, shop, or go, or whatever the signal was for you to be able to go ahead and shop. You had to wait until they had all the bins in place and everybody was out of the way. So Kansas City was the exception to that rule. If you were in front of a bin that had something that you wanted that was in it in one of the new rotations, for instance, I had a crate that I was looking at, a milk crate that I was looking at that the guy next to me was also interested in. I told him he should just go ahead and have it, but other people had items that they wanted to pull and the management would come over and pull these items, and then you would go to the front and flip for them, so that way it was fair and it reduced fighting, and it was really civil and very nice. I wish a lot of other places would do that. I hope that they institute that policy. It was very nice. What was different about that was that the management or the workers at Goodwill were the ones that organized that. They were the ones that pulled the item, did the flipping, calmed the crowd, so to speak, and took care of that within their own policies, and it was just standard practice, and everybody was chill with it, and everybody understood it, and everybody knew that that's what was going to happen. They even let us know that before we even got to go into the new rotation. They gave us the spiel and said, this is the speech and this is the deal, and I really appreciated the communication that they gave to all of us. Other places do this sort of on their own, but it's just the customer that does that. So for instance, in Denver, if you have a mismatched shoe, I have one shoe and they have another shoe, you usually go on your own over to the other person and then flip for it. So you take a quarter and you call heads and tails, and whoever wins the flip gets the pair of shoes. That seems pretty normal, I think, in a lot of other different bins locations, and so is trading. That seems pretty normal in all of the locations that I went to, especially in Phoenix. Denver, it's happened quite a few times to me. That happened also in St. Louis. So very cool that everybody does stuff like that. Several places stated on their signs or posting somewhere that kids are not allowed into the bins, or people 16 and under are not allowed to come into the bins. That happens in Jacksonville, Illinois, and in Denver. I even once saw some girls come in that wanted to go shopping, and before they could even come in, the staff asked them how old they were, like they were getting carded at the club. Other times you go places and there's just kids everywhere. I don't know if some days I've gone to places where I just didn't see any kids, or so they allow them, or if I just happened to be there on a day where there weren't any kids. But I would suggest that if you are thinking about going to the bins and taking your kids with you, either call ahead of time or don't take your kids. I'll probably get a lot of comments on that, but don't take your kids. That's just my personal opinion. Go ahead, leave a comment. A few places that I did notice kids being allowed was St. Louis, Nashville, Reno, and Fort Myers. The few places that I've been where I know that they don't allow kids is any of them that I've been to in Colorado and Jacksonville, Illinois. So kids are one thing, but dogs are a completely other thing. I never even thought about taking my dog to the bins. I may do that now because I have seen them in several different locations. I've seen them in Denver, St. Louis, and Salt Lake City. They're adorable and probably the best find of the day at those bins. Just like every bins location is pretty much the same with a few slight variations, so are their prices. Everybody charges a flat by the pound rate for most things that are like wares and clothing. But a lot of times they will charge a lower rate or lower price for glassware, books, linens, and books are either a lot cheaper or they're a lot more expensive. It depends on the location. They also separate the shoes a lot of times. Not in Denver where I usually go, it's all part of just by the pound wares. But in places like Kansas City and Fort Myers, they charge a different rate for the shoes. So the prices on the wares can range anywhere from 99 cents a pound to $1.99 a pound. Books seem to be anywhere from 25 cents each to $1.99 each. So there usually is a chart or a sign posted somewhere that tells you how much everything is, so that you know way in advance how much you're going to be spending. If you found something that was a little bit heavier, some places will give you special pricing, like Denver or Salt Lake, where I picked up a bowling ball for only $1.99, knowing that it would be a whole lot more by the pound, but they offered me special pricing. I've done that a couple different times in Denver too, with whole sets of dishes or even lamps. A few places separate those items out so that they don't have to give special pricing. Jacksonville, Illinois, and is it Reno or Salt Lake? I'll pop it up here so that you can see. They separate certain items out, like furniture or vacuums or things like that, that are a specific price per item. So that way it's posted and you know how much it is before you even get up there. You don't even have to ask for special pricing. It just is what it is. A few places price things on like a graduated scale, so the more pounds you had, the cheaper it got. So like if you had 20 pounds of merchandise there, or 20 pounds of items in your cart, then it was less money per pound than it was if you only had 9 pounds in your cart. So each place was different. Omaha was like that, and so was Kansas City. To be honest, I had fun at all the bins. I always do. You never know what you're gonna find, and you never know where I'm gonna be. Some bins were super organized and clean. Some bins were pretty dirty or even smelled kind of bad. But I found a few good things at all of them. And I always meet some pretty cool people. And for me, that was the best part. I hope I get to meet you there. I hope you say hi. And until then, I'd be grateful if you liked and subscribed and all those good things. So I will see you next time. I'll see you in the bins.